On today's episode of Pathmonk Presents, I've got a very special guest with me joining today. Please welcome the founder of B2B SaaS Reviews, Joe. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to have you here on the show and learning more about who you are and all your successes, the challenges you have faced in your career, and this company that you have founded. So thank you again for making the time for us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of our listeners out there, give us an insight. Tell us about B2B SaaS Reviews.
Yeah, so B2B SaaS Reviews, you could think of it as a media site that's really helping guide software marketers through reviews from the point of view of the vendor. So we all know as consumers what it's like to use reviews, but as a vendor who's marketing software, there are some major questions. Why do reviews matter? Where should I go to get reviews? On which review sites should I focus? How do I kind of get these reviews, leverage them, and measure the impact of them on my business? And while the review sites kind of touch on these, there was really no kind of impartial third party that was helping guide marketers on this. And as a practitioner myself, who kind of had to figure out the answers to all these questions and do it myself, I thought, why don't I create a resource for all the software marketers out there that have to figure this out. And that's in a nutshell what B2B SaaS Reviews is.
Super cool. Thanks for giving us an insight onto essentially what your company does. So now my next
Mhm.
question is for what companies and industries do you typically serve best, and what is the problem that you solve for them, and what are the services that they can expect from you?
Yeah, so in terms of the companies, they're software companies. I focus at this time on software review sites. So any marketer that is marketing a software product on one of those sites, and that would be companies of any size. So whether you're a one or two person startup, all the way up to a major enterprise like HubSpot, there's a need to do reviews in some way, shape, or form. Um, and then in terms of the kind of the main problem I'm solving for them, I'd say it's ultimately prioritization. So, most companies have few resources for reviews. In my view, it's mostly because they're hard to measure the impact. Um, Yet, on the other hand, we know that reviews are critical in the buying process. So most companies kind of do reviews to some extent, um, but there's usually one or two people that kind of work on this. There's not enough resources to do it all. So prioritization becomes key. And then that's where the B2B SaaS Reviews website comes in, kind of providing that information to help these marketers, these vendors make informed decisions of how to use their limited resources. So for example, like common common question will be, okay, I've been tasked, I have to go generate as many reviews as I can. Um, what do I do? Where do I get them? Should I focus on one site or should I spread them across multiple sites? And there's pros and cons to each. I've interviewed practitioners that have been on either side of that fence. On the one hand, if you just focus on one site, the argument is you kind of maximize your presence, and you don't kind of half-ass a handful of them. So, for example, one company called ReachDesk, which is a gifting platform, they had they were a couple hundred person company, Series B, growing fast, but they hadn't really done anything proactively on reviews and review sites. They focused on just one site. They went for G2, and in doing so, they generated, I think, about 500 reviews. And in 1 year, they were ranked the fifth fastest growing product on G2 and made their top 100 list.
Oh,
So in their
wow.
view, they said like we just want to make a name for ourselves through this one review site. So that was kind of an example of like just focusing on one site. Um, the argument for kind of focusing on more than one site would be, um, your buyers don't just go to one site. Like typically, they'll turn to search. They'll find these review sites in different ways. So uh, ultimately, you want to show up well where your buyers go, and that oftentimes is more than one site. Show up well can mean a number of things, but for most, it essentially means Are you high enough on the page in terms of position and rank that buyers will actually read your reviews? If you're in a crowded category with some categories, it's not uncommon to have dozens, if not over 100 products. Um, if you're not near the top of that, I'd say like top five, top 10, like you're probably missing out on a lot. So there's a case to be made that you have to kind of focus on more than one if your buyers are going to more than one, and you need to show up there. Also, some people are a little bit skeptical if you're just kind of on one site. They think maybe there was some sort of pay to play or deal there. So there's a little bit added credibility if you're showing well across multiple review sites. Um, so that's probably one of at least a dozen questions that marketing practitioners have to ask themselves and figure out when it comes to reviews. And um, at this time, those are the answers I'm trying to provide on the website.
Super cool. Wow, that's really great. The fact that Reach Just was able, like, just to become like the fifth fastest growing product on G2 so quickly. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Kudos to them. Yeah, they really focused on it and they got it done.
Yeah, definitely. So now, how does your audience typically find out about you? What would you say are your top 10 acquisition channels? Can you give us an insight onto this?
Yeah. So it's a newish company, and right now it's a side project. So they probably struggle to find me, I would say, but I would say most of it's search, and I've got good feedback when people do find me that they're really happy with the content. Um, so my preference is to build it up through search. I think um, the intention is to help marketers when they need they need it the most, and that's in my experience typically fairly reactive. So they get tasked with generating reviews or now being responsible for reviews. And I think oftentimes most people go to search and look for an answer. So my goal is to provide that answer there in search. Um, in addition to that, I think social and LinkedIn, because it's a B2B software audience, that's also important. It's not my favorite. But I know it's important to build it up, and I'm kind of slowly doing that as well.
Super cool. Thanks for going more into depth for us. So
Yeah.
now, what role does your website play in client acquisition? Do you feel that there are any major strengths or weaknesses?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, essentially, it's a free website. So anyone like listening and playing the role in reviews, it's essentially a free resource. So I think that's probably its greatest strength and weakness. I would say like it's very pro consumer right now. But obviously, the greatest weakness is to continue to build this up. I do need to figure out the monetization piece, and I think that's where um, looking at my peers who do similar things, it could be a course, it could be consulting, or it could be affiliate links, or some combination of those. Um, but that's kind of where it's at right now.
So now I have to ask, since
Mhm,
with building this company and with the website as well, what
mhm.
have you learned about what it takes to make a great conversion with, your website? Are there any tools, tips, or methods or approaches that you can recommend for marketers and for anyone who is now beginning to start cultivating their business and building their own website?
Yeah, I think the biggest one would be when it comes to reviews is kind of leveraging them as social proof. So you see it on many websites, but essentially um, showing that your product is trusted by users can really help with conversions. So um, I recently worked with a freelance writer to kind of investigate and research this a little bit more to see, can we find real world examples of social proof in the form of reviews that have had a measurable impact on conversion. Um, and I found it kind of surprisingly hard to track down people that had the performance metric. I think a lot of people will just do this, and I've been guilty of this too, because it's intuitive and you know that it'll make sense. You see reviews as social proof everywhere, um, but we did ultimately get we did get many examples of it having a lift, and I think what it comes down to is how much of a lift will it have. You see it everywhere. it's definitely worth trying, but the results do vary quite a bit. I think I've seen everything from I haven't seen any of that where it was a negative change, but I've seen kind of negligible where it didn't really move the needle. And then, I've seen it all the way up to 300% improvement and kind of everything in between. But I think, in my estimation, I think, something like 10% could be like a reasonable performance boost from adding social proof to a website.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that and for deep diving because I feel that with marketers, they tend to struggle with, okay, so this is what I am wanting to do on my own personal website for my own business, but I don't know where to start. And then
Hmm.
it tends to where they feel overwhelmed. So I think that's a really great sound advice for anyone who's looking to start or people who have already started. They know, okay, these are things I need to take into consideration without feeling so overwhelmed. Because I feel um, for those who are just starting their own business, it can be very overwhelming because there's a lot to do. And then figuring out, okay,
Yeah.
which goals are achievable within the short term, and then which ones are in the long term that are like not need to not with try not to feel so overwhelmed all at once. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think for the people that are just starting off and having their own website, one thing I need to do personally, because my advice was more for like software vendors, I'd say that
yeah,
have a product and customer base.
yeah,
I think try to get like even a handful of testimonials from people that know you and you've worked with, even if it's pro bono work, just to kind of show that you do have that kind of third party social proof. Someone's vouching for you can go a long way.
yeah, definitely. So now with being the founder, can you give us an insight as to what are the key tasks that you focus on in your day-to-day work?
Yeah. So because it's a media site, there's a lot of content, and as I'm kind of building it up, that means kind of being content marketer. There's lots of content to make, how-to posts, research. I'm running 2 survey reports right now. I'm working on tooling, product content that can help all marketers with all things review related. Uh, and all that content, I need to build that up to raise the site's domain authority so that more marketers find this in search. And I think where I need to go next, and I think for anyone kind of building up something on their own like this, um, there's definitely then that transition point where you go from being kind of the kind of maker to the delegator. So finding a way to make it, know it works, know the process, but then ultimately start hiring and outsourcing to other people that can help kind of scale it up. So I think that's probably where I need to kind of focus my day to day going forward.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's great where you're already in that stage, like, okay, like now it's slowly working with freelancers and ultimately getting to the point of where, okay,
Yeah.
now I can begin to build my team and then moving forward to where, okay, now becoming more of a, whether it's a regional or international or
Hmm.
global, whatever it may be, but it's like the baby
Yeah.
steps getting there.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Hmm.
so now we're getting close to the end of our interview and I'm gonna ask you some
Hmm.
rapid fire questions. You ready, Joe?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. If there were no boundaries in technology, what would be the one thing that you would want to have fixed within your current role as a marketer today?
Definitely attribution. I think
Yes.
it seems to be the biggest problem for all marketers, especially kind of growth marketers, demand marketers, which is my day job as well. Um, I think it's just things have changed quite a bit in the last 5, 10 years with marketing, and previously with gated content, there was just a lot more known to a vendor about that buyer's journey that they're going on, and being able to attribute what your marketing is or is not doing in that. Now there's just so much kind of anonymous behavior that someone could be listening to a podcast or going to a third party review site, and it's very challenging to measure. So if someone could figure out attribution, that would really make all of our lives a lot easier as marketers.
Yes, it would. It would make our lives so much easier. So now, if there was one repetitive task that you could automate, which one would that be?
So it, I probably should pick something that'd be more impactful, but it's such a like an irritant, I'd say, for me and anyone who works on reviews. But um, all the review sites provide review site badges, and they do so typically quarterly. So you basically have to go update all of your collateral, your website, sales decks, etc. Um, every quarter. And oftentimes you just kind of let it drag, and then the badges are outdated and they're less effective. So I think if there was a way to automate that, it'd be um, a big help to all the vendors out there. Basically, would need the review site to integrate with, say, your CMS like Wordflow or Webflow or WordPress, so that you could basically have your badges basically automatically update each quarter. Once you earn them, that's like the new seasonal badges get updated, and you don't have to go download, upload, and do the whole update yourself manually.
Yeah, definitely. It's really tedious. So I
Yeah,
agree with you.
exactly.
It would just make it easier because especially even myself, any tedious tasks that I have to do, I'm the same way. I'm like, I wish I could just automate this because it's like
Yeah,
it's so much time where it's like I know I could be giving that time to other things that have a higher priority, but it's like I still have to do
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah, and it's low value, and it'd be yeah ripe for automation.
Yeah, definitely. So my next question is, so where do you go to learn and grow uh within this industry? Especially now as marketers, there's so
Hmm.
much noise in the digital realm. How do you cut through the noise and essentially stay up to date without feeling very overwhelmed?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, with I have a 2-year-old and this B2B SaaS reviews and a day job, so it's very overwhelming. I don't have time to read nearly as much as I used to. So for me, it's kind of a combination of search, social, and peer communities. So search, it's usually like on demand. If I need to know something right now, asking Google or now even ChatGPT. Um, with social, it could be a fire hose. I often struggle with it. So what I try to do is stick to LinkedIn and focus on people that have a pretty tight focus. Usually, like
Yeah,
kind of someone that's like a LinkedIn ads expert or something, not the marketing guru kind of thing. Something that it could be more actionable and not so overwhelming. And then peer communities, I think, are growing so rapidly that I think more and more I'm turning there. I still find it hard to figure out how to do it efficiently, but I think since COVID and everything went online, there's so many more of these now. I went from being in a handful, like not even maybe a few, to now I think I'm in a dozen. And they're getting more and more niche, which I think is a good thing because I can go if I'm working on ads, I can go to an ad specific community and get the answers I need. So um, it's a combination, but it is overwhelming and it's challenging still.
yeah, it is. Especially where for I've noticed this with marketers who are just now coming in. They want to listen to everything. They want to follow everyone. Where it's like, no, like you're starting. Be picky with where you're starting. Follow industry experts and keep it to at least two or three, minimum like newsletters to start off with. And then the more you grow in your career, you can either begin to expand or unless if you, let's say you want to pivot, if it's someone going from brand specialist and they want to become a like a growth marketer. Like it's a huge jump, but I mean, it's possible. You put your time and effort into it, it's super possible to switch into that. But you know what I
Yeah.
mean overall.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. You have to start small and ask your colleagues, ask your boss, ask your peers, like who do they listen to? Look for like curated roundup lists, and see if you can, yeah, keep it pretty tight.
Yeah, definitely. So now we're at the end of our interview today. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. But I also want to give you the last word. If
Hmm.
anyone were to forget about everything that we've talked about today in this interview, what do you want them to remember about B2B SaaS review overall?
I'd say, if you're a marketer or even a founder at a software company, um, come to B2B SaaS reviews to help be informed on how to go about doing reviews for your business, how to get reviews, how to measure them, how to leverage them, the lay of the land of the review sites. So think of it as kind of the place to go to learn about review sites from the point of view of a software vendor.
Amazing. And for all of our audience out there as well as listening, if they want to be able to connect with you, can they reach out to you on the B2B SaaS Reviews website or to you on LinkedIn to connect?
Either or works. Yeah, I'll look at anything that comes through the website and definitely on LinkedIn as well.
Sounds good. Amazing. Well, Joe, thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today. It was a pleasure getting to meet you, getting an insight onto your company, B2B SaaS Reviews, and super excited to see the company begin to scale up and grow. So thanks again for making the time for us today.